Long ago, when force learned it could outrun mercy, the world changed. Cities fell, borders vanished, and the earth absorbed the sound of passing armies. When the dust settled, the fallen were counted and remembered. But the women were not counted. They were taken quietly, as if the future itself could be claimed without resistance. That moment did not end with conquest. It merely shifted location, moving from the battlefield into the home. Children were born into silence. Mothers survived by adapting, not by speaking. Daughters learned without being taught. Pain does not need language to pass from one generation to the next. It travels through behavior, fear, and unspoken rules. Empires rose and collapsed, flags changed, and the world congratulated itself on progress, unaware that something ancient still lived beneath the surface. What remained did not look like history. It looked like habit, fear without a name, control disguised as tradition, patterns repeated without explanation. This is how the past survives, not through memory, but through routine. Trauma left unexamined does not disappear. It organizes itself into culture and belief. Yet the story does not end in loss. Those women endured. They carried life forward under circumstances designed to erase choice. Civilization itself continued because they did. Strength did not announce itself. It persisted quietly, raising generations in the shadow of what should have destroyed them. And then slowly, a question emerged. Why does this pain still exist? Why do we inherit wounds we never received? That question marked the beginning of the end, because the past only rules when it is not understood. Awareness loosens its grip. Truth weakens its authority. Conquest always believes it lasts forever, but it never survives understanding. The story is not about what was taken. It is about what survived. The footprint that outlived the footstep. This keynote speaks to the idea that the greatest effects of violence are not immediate, but enduring. Battles end, armies move on, and empires collapse, yet the consequences remain embedded in human lives. When women were taken during conquest, the act did not conclude with the moment itself. It continued through generations, through children born of force, through silence passed down like inheritance, and through emotional patterns that outlived the conquerors themselves. History often measures impact by dates, victories, and territorial change. This keynote challenges that measurement. It reminds us that the deepest historical footprints are invisible. They are carried in bloodlines, family structures, and psychological wounds that never received a name. The footstep fades, but the footprint remains. This concept reframes how we understand power. True power does not only destroy in the present, it shapes the future. When people today experience fear, mistrust, or broken identity without knowing why, they may be standing inside a footprint left centuries ago. This is why the past feels unfinished, because it is still alive in human behavior. The keynote calls for awareness. Once we recognize that history does not vanish when events end, we gain responsibility. Understanding the footprint allows societies to stop repeating the walk that made it. Power always aims for the future. This keynote explains that conquest is never just about land or victory. It is about control over what comes next. By dominating women, power attempted to dominate generations. Children are the future, and whoever controls their origin believes they control destiny. This reveals a chilling truth. Violence against women in war is not random cruelty. It is strategic. It is an attempt to rewrite tomorrow by force. This keynote urges the listener to see power not as muscle, but as intention. The conqueror does not stop at the present moment. They aim forward, embedding themselves into time. Understanding this helps explain why the effects of ancient violence still exist today. When future generations are born from coercion, the consequences ripple outward: identity confusion, inherited trauma, and social imbalance. The future becomes shaped by an act that was never consented to. This keynote also warns that whenever power seeks to control bodies, reproduction, or identity, it is repeating the same ancient strategy. Awareness becomes protection. If power always aims for the future, then consciousness must aim there too. The quiet survival. This keynote centers on resilience rather than brutality. History often glorifies destruction, but survival is the greater achievement. The women who endured did more than live. They preserved humanity under conditions meant to erase it. Quiet survival is strength without applause. These women raised children, formed families, and maintained life despite circumstances designed to break them. Civilization did not continue because of conquest, it continued because of endurance. This keynote reframes strength. Strength is not always rebellion or resistance. Sometimes it is persistence. Sometimes it is waking up and choosing life again. That kind of strength rarely enters history books, yet it sustains the world. By honoring survival, this keynote restores balance to historical narratives. It acknowledges pain without allowing pain to define identity. Survival becomes a foundation for healing, not a reminder of defeat. When trauma becomes tradition. This keynote explains how unhealed pain transforms into normalized behavior. When trauma is not confronted, it disguises itself as culture, belief, or destiny. Control becomes normal, silence becomes proper, fear becomes wisdom. Generations repeat patterns without knowing their origin. This is how history continues unconsciously. The keynote emphasizes that trauma does not disappear with time, it organizes itself. The power of this insight lies in recognition. Once a society sees that certain traditions are rooted in pain, it gains the ability to choose differently. Awareness interrupts inheritance. This keynote is not about blame, it is about clarity. You cannot heal what you refuse to see. The ending is always written later. The final keynote delivers hope. It asserts that history is not fixed, it is revisited through understanding. The moment we examine the past honestly, it loses its control over the present. Conquest believes itself eternal, but awareness dissolves it. Healing does not erase history, it completes it. The ending was never written at the moment of violence. It waits for courage. This keynote empowers the listener. It reminds us that the final chapter belongs to those willing to understand, confront, and choose differently. The true end of conquest is consciousness.